Eric, can you please tell me about your journey from addiction to sobriety? Let's start with what made you start drinking, and can you please explain the concept of the slippery slope?
Yeah, so as I grew up, at family get-togethers, drinking was just kind of a thing that adults did. I didn't learn until years later that I had addiction issues on both sides of my family. So as I grew up, that was just part of it. I took my first drink when I was about 14 years old. I don't know, a lot of kids in early high school, they probably do too. And at first, the first drink, the first drunk was awful, and I woke up with the worst taste in my mouth the next day. But as high school progressed, and I was kind of shy and kind of anxious, and I had anxiety. The alcohol was it was very much of a social lubricant for me. So I was smart enough to get through high school, and the drinking progressed. When I got to college, started with a bunch of guys. There's a lot of drinking at college, and we would drink, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It seemed, every week. It wasn't until I got out of college and I got into professional life. My friends, some of them started getting married. Others, they had different hobbies. Others, they just did different things, and I just kept on drinking. So when I hit about 30 years old, 33, I realized, I probably got a problem here. And the social lubrication that it was meant to help me with, that was the problem. But now the alcohol was becoming the problem. And I kind of understood that I probably got an issue here. And there in my late 30s, if you kind of look at it, the alcohol became the problem, right? When you talk about that slippery slope, at first it solved the problem, and in my case, it was, social lubricant. I was kind of shy around people, but then it actually became the problem, and that's when things got really bad.
So, how did you manage this problem?
Well, I went to 3 rehabs. The first two obviously didn't work. The third one, I had gotten married. My boy was, I think, about 5 years old, 4 years old, and my wife had just had enough of my drinking, and she left me. I went back. I was serious. Certain things. Everybody has to have a reason for quitting. I mean, everyone has to have, play the tape forward. You have to have a big enough consequence in order to get you to change your drinking. They talk about hitting bottom. Some people have higher bottoms than others, but you have to hit bottom, and that was my bottom. So I went to rehab. Finally took it seriously. I got out. The 30 days at rehab was like being under a bubble. It was great because there's no alcohol, there's no anxiety producing things that were going on, and I was around a lot of people who had the same problem that I had. But take me out of that, take anyone out from underneath the bubble and put them back into regular life, and all the problems in regular life that they had come back. So how do you deal with those? I'll say that in the early days, there were some definite white knuckle times when the anxiety really hit me, and I really just kind of had to grin and bear it. But as I got further along, my family came back, my boy came back, got together back with my wife. We were married for 21 years. I realized that by not drinking, I had a lot of time on my hands. I had a lot, and idle time for an alcoholic is not a good thing. So I had to fill that up with things. One of the things I did was I started working with other alcoholics, the 12 steps. I started taking people through the 12 steps. I scheduled meetings specifically on the worst days at work, which were usually on Mondays. So I had a stopping point, and that was it. I was done, and I went to a meeting. I also pursued other hobbies, other activities that allowed me to to take up that time as an alcoholic. They say in the recovery circles, everyone is a recovering alcoholic. There are plenty of examples out there of people with 20 years, 30 years of sobriety that go back to drinking. So the recovering point is is a very valid one. You don't beat alcoholism. You just learn to get through and replace it with other things.
So you think 12-step program was very crucial to your recovery?
I think the 12-step program is very crucial to my recovery. It gave me a structure, gave me a framework to work through. And they always say that if you want to learn something, the best thing to do is to try to teach it. So after I'd gone through the 12 steps, and I had a couple of sponsors, a couple of sponsors fired me, and a couple of sponsors I fired, but when I found that person, that one person that could get me through the 12 steps, then it was my turn to turn around and to offer that help to others. Yes, it was very essential in the entire process.
Okay, so do you advise of being on a certain medication to help recovery? Did you try one?
When I was going through the rehab, and this is probably 20 years ago, there was one drug in particular that was on being used. Essentially, it made you throw up if you drank. That's really kind of all that it did. I thought maybe going down that road as a therapy, but I realized, and we'll talk about this, is we drink and drug to change the way we feel. All right, so you can detox me, you can get me off the drug, but changing the way I feel, that's what needs to be addressed in order to get rid of the alcoholism. And in my case, it was anxiety and filling up my time with things and being around other alcoholics and having structure. That's what helped me to get through a lot of the tough times. And I probably sponsored a dozen and a half people. Working with other alcoholics is another way. That they say that working with, as the sponsors, we get more out of it than the sponsee, the person who is the alcoholic, gets out of it, and that is absolutely true. By working with them, by keeping our disease front and center to ourselves, it allows us to wake up the next day and not drink.
Thank you, Eric, very much. Really, thank you for your time.